Gizmodo, Baldur's Gate 3's commitment to D&D shenanigans includes carnal druid bear sex. And Baldur's Gate 3 lets you customize your character's genitals. Just what we needed. D&D's going even more woke. The slippery slope is real, folks. I have some articles for you today that are going to just, if you didn't hear about this, you're going to be in shock and awe, I think. If you're in any way a reasonable person, you're going to be like, what the hell is this crap? The subtitle on the Gizmodo article is, in a live stream detailing the launch of the long-awaited RPG sequel, gamers learned that they can get more than they bargained for with the game's romances. All right, so let's see what the bear intimacy is all about. Recently, Larian Studios, the developers behind the beloved Divinity Original Sin games, tasked with the daunting prospect of continuing the legacy of Baldur's Gate series, some of the most iconic Dungeons & Dragons games ever made a big fuss about the scope of its game. More dialogue than Lord of the Rings. Cutscenes longer than Game of Thrones. I care not for these things. I care for literally wild sex with handsome druids. Even if those druids look like animals, like woodland creatures, get your chipmunk on. Yeah, that's This is not a game for children, clearly. And on top of which, it's my understanding, I don't know, because I've never searched for these things, although I have seen jobs posted for them as an animator. I've seen this. There are pornographic games, right? You can go out and play them, and they are like rated XXX and stuff. So, yeah, that's my understanding. Maybe if you know for sure, leave a comment, please. Enlighten me on the subject matter. Thankfully, today's Panel from Hell livestream by Larian, offering a look at the game before it releases after an extensive early access period early next month, confirmed that players will be able to get exactly that. Taking a closer look at several romance scenes that players will be able to experience with Baldur's Gate 3's cast of characters, Larian demoed 2 encounters on pretty much the opposite ends of the raunchiness spectrum. The first saw a Dragonborn player character go on a date in the titular Sword Coast city of Karlach Demonsbane, a female tiefling barbarian wining and dining them in a cute little restaurant scene. Okay. The other, meanwhile, saw one of the playable party members gamers can pick, instead of a custom character, Asterion, a high elf vampire. Why can you play vampires? Vampires are evil. Escaped the city for a nighttime forest encounter with a party member, Halsin, a wood elf druid. Much to the delight of the watching live stream audience, the scene quickly saw both men undress for a moment of intimacy. Let me tell you, if your naked shenanigans last a moment, you're doing it wrong. You're just doing it all wrong. Before, while being overcome with lust, Halsin lost control of his druidic abilities and briefly wild-shaped into a bear. We have some it's probably a 7-hour live stream, the Hell Showcase. We're not going to watch this for 7 hours of this, of course. But how do you explain? I mean, who was the giver and who was the receiver on this little tryst? Was the human or high elf vampire? Was he the giver? Because the bear might be like, yeah, that's not big enough. Sorry, dude. Don't know what to tell you. If it was the other way around, I don't think he's going to need to worry about a stake through his heart so much as he's got to worry about a stake through his other end. Being a Dungeons & Dragons game, and therefore being about letting you make any choice you want, the scene, yes, okay, you can't make any choice you want in D&D. D&D is so limited, it's terrible because of the limitations in D&D. That's what makes it. Role-playing is great. This base, rolling system, roll a 20-sided die, add your bonuses or subtract your negative modifiers, whatever. That's fine. That's not hurting anything. It's the fact that you can't customize your character, really. You're stuck being like whatever class and level you are. Oh, you can change. Yeah, you can pick another class. All right, that might not give you what you want, though. I mean, because you're limited by, they just tell you what it is you have, what abilities you have. That's what you are. That's it. You don't get to create your own characters. That's what I'm saying. And that is what is frustrating about D&D, mostly. Okay, where were we? You can make any choice you want. The scene could have played out multiple ways. The player can back out, scared off by Halsin's lack of control. They can comfort him and continue their romantic encounter, or they can ask him to turn back into a bear. What do you think the audience picked? Turn back into a bear, I'm sure. Have you ever considered the joys and pleasures of sexual congress with a wild-shaped druid? No. I can honestly say I have never thought about what it would be like to engage in this activity with an animal. It does not interest me. It is anti-human to do these things with animals. You are supposed to be doing these with humans, at least intelligent creatures, which humans are the only ones on the planet. Human beings, creatures that understand the full gravity of what they're doing. How much more close you can allow that act to make you as a couple. You want to make it an inhuman act, which is what the whole of society wants to do these days, it seems like, then you're making yourself less human. It's just that's just that simple. Adam Smith and lead writer at Baldur's Gate 3 said in a statement sent via press release, because at Larian we have and ultimately landed on the side of giving the people what they want, tender, consensual romance with a man temporarily transformed into a grizzly bear. Yeah, okay. Wow. Yeah, although the stream cut away from anything too raunchy, that's exactly what will happen if you play your cards right. And ridiculous salaciousness aside, this a far more interesting factoid about Baldur's Gate than the vastness of its script or the length of its cutscenes, rivaling other mainstream fantasy epics. As someone already very impressed with the version of the game that has developed throughout early access, I am coming to Baldur's Gate 3 for a virtual Dungeons & Dragons experience. No, it sounds like you're coming for a virtual Naked Bear experience. Yippee. A sense of freedom and player influence. A playground for amazing and absurd stories to play out, upended by an out-there combat choice or a tight dice roll dialogue check. The best part of playing a tabletop RPG is the potential of all those things intersecting. A gung-ho player and storyteller, a mechanical playbox, and the luck of the dice, and giving you a memorable story to tell your friends after the fact. A thing that could have only happened to you and your character in that moment. You can go find a bear out there. I don't think you'll want to do that with you since you're not a bear, but you can try. Sometimes that thing might be getting it on with a bear who is also actually a bear sometimes. And the fact that that's in there somewhere in Baldur's Gate 3's over 170 hours of cutscenes is far more intriguing to me than the fact that that's longer than Game of Thrones twice over. Yeah. What has the world come to? This is what people fantasize about? I mean, I'm legitimately asking. I have never fantasized about being with an animal. That just never wondered what it would be like. Never wanted to do it. Never crossed my mind. The heck. Now let's go over to here where we're looking at Kotaku, and they're letting you customize your genitals. See, why did this happen? Why would they want you to be able to do this? People were up in arms. Oh, I have to play a male character, and he's all buff and ripped, and I'm just a little nerdy girl. I'm a little fat nerdy girl. Doesn't represent me.
Was she a great big fat person?
There are plenty of games out there that allow you to customize your character. Play Dragon's Dogma, the first one, the original. They're coming out with a second one, apparently. The original from years and years ago let you build basically whatever kind of character you wanted. I don't remember if you could play a female character, but I mean, whatever body type you wanted, you could get. You want to be a big fat guy, you could. You want to be a short fat guy, you could get it. You want to be a little skinny, you could play a 13-year-old kid, even younger, I think, because age was a factor. And then you could just like, oh, I want to be elderly, I want to be really young, I want to be big, I want to be tall, I want to be short, I want to be skinny, I want to be all these different things. You can do it in that game. Pick it up. I have my copy is for PS4, so it's out there for that game system. You could probably get a PS4. You could probably get the game. You could probably do it on Steam. I don't know. My point being, there's already games. They figured out, oh, we can't complain about the fact that you can customize characters for. In fact, we've been customizing characters since a long time ago in games, like the 80s, I think, is when it first started, maybe in the 90s. But now they've moved on to, okay, well, what's the one thing that we haven't been able to customize so far? What is the one thing that we've not been able to customize? I know. His wang size. It's got to be humongous. Humongous. Baldur's Gate 3 is a big game, and with all the depth and capital C content comes character customization. While you can pick between different races, classes, and appearances, the latest Panel from Hell presentation may have accidentally revealed, you can pick your character's genitals as well. I'm gonna play a white elf like this elf right here with a black one. How does that sound? Sound good? During development, Larian Studios' Panel from Hell presentation today, July 7th, the team showed off some updates to the character customization options that will be available in the full game compared to the early access version currently available. While the studio was primarily focused on things like showing the maturity slider that lets you add wrinkles to show age or vitiligo pigmentation. I've never heard that word before. What do you know? The menu also showed an option to change your character's genitals at the 4 hour and 10 minute 45 second mark. The option shown on the screen simply reads default, so it's unclear just how extensive the customization will be. We've reached out to Larian for comment and we'll update the story if we hear back. What is this here? This little character right here, it looks kind of like an orc. Maybe it's supposed to be a half orc. This green one on the right. I don't know. It kind of looks like an orc. Probably half orc. But I thought they were getting rid of half-breed races, so whatever. This is significant because it's another way alongside picking your race, body type, and pronouns. Just what we need. You know what? I am so happy they put the pronouns in this game. I wasn't going to play it, but now that I know they put pronouns in here, so that when you're speaking to me and I have not standard pronouns like he, she pronouns, that I don't understand what you're saying. That'll make the game much easier to play. That players can customize their character's identity in the world, allowing any mix of body type, genitals, and pronouns lets you create a protagonist that can fit into different identities that might align more closely with your own. Cyberpunk 2077 had a similar feature when it launched, but it was both very limiting and got caught up in the game's weird determining of these pronouns by their voice rather than any sort of toggle the player could choose. Hopefully, this is the actualization of an RPG that really lets you create a character that reflects your identity and lived experience. Well, I won't be playing Cyberpunk, apparently. I played Cyberpunk, the TTRPG, years and years ago. I enjoyed it. I've never played a Cyberpunk video game. I have tried reading some Cyberpunk books, and they're boring as hell, so I never got through them. But yeah, Cyberpunk is a big deal, and they're leading this charge, apparently. So, good job. What remains to be seen is whether your genitals actually appear in-game much. As Cyberpunk 2077 only showed your junk in its pause menu when you remove your pants, Larian showed off some of the romance scenes during the Panel from Hell show, but cut the feed before things got too hot and heavy, lest they get banned from Twitch. Well, I'm guessing that they're going to show your genitals when the bear wrecks your butthole. Let's put it that way. You're going to be seeing all sorts of genitals flopping around then, whatever they may be. Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to PC on August 3rd, with the PlayStation 5 version set to come a month later in September. Wow. Yeah, I don't need to read any more of that. D&D. This could very well be another nail in your coffin. The creators of Pathfinder have released their own version of D&D's controversial OGL, and it could have a huge impact on all tabletop RPGs. Pathfinder, as far as I can tell, is the #1 competitor to Dungeons & Dragons. They're both garbage games, and I say that not having played Pathfinder, so you could be like, you know what you're talking about. Now, any game that limits you by class and level, period, that's what you have to. You have to be whatever level you are, and then you get to choose your class. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. It limits your ability to be creative in game. You can do whatever you want to. No, not if I don't have that ability. So they were saying in the other articles, you can do whatever you want to. What? Really? Really? Can I just scale this sheer wall here? No, you don't have that ability. Why? Because you're not a thief. Sorry, you can't do it. Not that that shouldn't be an ability that everybody has. I mean, everybody knows how to climb if you have arms and legs, right? But what do I know? The Orc license aims to foster more collaboration and innovation across the entire industry. So I'm guessing that Pathfinder saw the OGL and what it had done for 5e, the die 20 system that D&D has, and said, hey, why don't we do the same thing? Take all of that market from D&D, and then we'll have a bigger game than Dungeons & Dragons is. From what I've heard of Pathfinder, it's a bit better than D&D, but not much. Pathfinder's answer to the open gaming license, dubbed the Open RPG Creative License or ORC license, has been completed and released for public use. Oh, all right then. Created in direct response to Wizards of the Coast pretty nefarious attempts to clamp down on the use of its open gaming license to its own profit. The ORC license is designed to be a system agnostic, perpetual, and irrevocable open gaming license that allows any game to create a safe environment for collaboration. And what happens when they start coming for your safe spaces? The Dungeons & Dragons OGL controversy. For over 20 years, the open gaming license has allowed other companies to make D&D-based products freely. In January, Wizards of the Coast tried to introduce a new OGL that gave them royalties and greater control, and revoke the old one. The community reaction was so universally negative that WOTC ended up having to completely abandon the idea. WOTC ultimately left the original OGL in place and also released the latest version of the D&D 5e rules under a Creative Commons license. Yeah, they're doing that for now. Things probably change in the future. Even though WOTC U-turned on its OGL plans, the damage was already done. Any company existing as part of a wider D&D ecosystem, whether producing its own games using elements of D&D's rules or D&D compatible adventures across any edition of the game past and present, was forced to take stock, suddenly basing your business future on trust in WOTC's ongoing intentions seemed foolhardy, and many companies began work to break their links with the OGL completely, for the most part, by revising or rewriting their products to no longer be beholden to it. Yeah, and I think there was attempts at one time for D&D to copyright role-playing games, so you couldn't make any role-playing game, period. They were going to be the only ones who could make a role-playing game. Even though D&D is not technically a role-playing game, it's a dice rolling game, D&D does not rely on story at all for the game. It's ridiculous. Into that chaos, Pathfinder publisher Paizo launched development of its high-profile Orc license, backed by a huge alliance of other tabletop companies who pledged to use it. It's a direct rival to OGL, intended to give the industry a new safe license to rally around. So now that it's finally here, how does it actually work, and what impact can we expect it to have? Rather than being tied to a specific system, the Orc license is intended to work for any RPG. That's impossible. Once a publisher releases their game under the license, its system and mechanics are then covered, allowing other creators to use those elements in their own work without fear of any legal issues. It also explicitly works in perpetuity. In other words, once something is released under the license, it's covered by it forever. That's a pretty direct rebuttal to WOTC's attempted OGL changes, which were widely criticized for attempting to retroactively alter an agreement that was originally presented as irrevocable. Sounds to me like they're setting themselves up for some problems here. If I publish a game under the Orc, so it goes out there and then anybody can use that and make money off of it, that's what it sounds like they're saying. I don't know. I don't want to read through this entire article. It's pretty long. I will leave links down to it below if you want to read through it and see if there's any interesting nuggets in here. The reason I bring this up is in conjunction with what we see happening in Dungeons & Dragons. I'm going to leave it on this image. I like this image. There. So the thing is, we see this slippery slope, right? They want to say there's no such thing as a slippery slope. They started out as, we just want to live our lives. Okay, so we let you live your lives. Okay, now we just want to be able to show our stuff in public, do our stuff in public. Okay, we let you do your stuff in public. Okay, now we just want to get married. Okay, so we let you get married. Now they're coming after kids, and so on and so forth. And this is what we assumed was going to happen. That there are a lot of people assumed was going to happen. That this was actually a movement of sexual perversion, not a movement of love and caring for our people, of whatever your proclivities are. But the thing is, now we see that it's spilling over and the sexual deviance is being placed into video games. The fact that you can customize your character's genitals. Why do you need to do that? Oh, so that I can see myself represented in the game. Maybe I have different genitals than somebody else.
Truly, nobody cares about your dick, Morty. The sooner you learn that, the better.
Yeah. One of my favorite games of all time is Draken, the Ancient Skates, where you play a female character, female warrior. One of my favorite, for a long time, it was my favorite game until games got better, right? This was a great game for the time. Freaking fantastic for the time. But games have gotten better. So, did it bother me that this, was it like, oh my gosh, I have to play a female character. I'm never going to like this game. No, I played the game and got on with my life. I didn't know what her genitals were. For all I know, she could have been a man. She could have had male reproductive organs with huge fun bags. So that's how this person could have been the main character in this game. But it didn't matter to me. You don't need to know the character's reproductive organs to play the game unless it's going to be a sex-based game. So why are we presenting video games, a medium originally intended for children, in this way? D&D is a game that attracts children. I started playing Dungeons & Dragons when I was 7 years old. You're not supposed to start playing until you're 10. I started when I was 7. I would have probably, this game, aside from the perversion in it, I would have probably loved to have when I was a teenager. I'm like, this is the greatest game ever, yeah. But I don't want my children seeing this adult stuff happening in the game. I've played games that have adult stuff happening in them. And I'm like, yeah, my nephew is not getting a copy of this game from me. The Witcher 3. Great game. Freaking amazingly fantastic game. Not for a 13-year-old. Sorry, no. You're not going to watch, you're not going to play this game. You're 13, you're not playing this game. Another one. There's a God of War game that I played where you have sex with Aphrodite or something. I'm sure you all know. Everybody out there listening, I played that game. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, again, was not going to get that game for my nephew. All right? I'm an adult. I'm well into adulthood. That stuff is fine. It's all good fun. But is this going to be marketed to children? Is this something that we need to see where we're pushing this envelope of, oh, look, I had sex with a bear. Oh, look, I got to customize what's between my character's legs. Nobody cares. Anyway, yeah, slippery slope is real. Get woke. Hopefully D&D is going broke because it is a terrible game. And, I mean, it's basically the only game you can play around here where I live. You can play Pathfinder, maybe. There was a group I heard about playing Cyberpunk, but they're full, so I couldn't join them. So it's like I have to either play D&D or play nothing, and D&D is terrible. You don't get to have choices in Dungeons & Dragons. They tell you what you are. I can tell you these characters right here, it looks like you got a priest, a thief, and a barbarian. Why do I know that by looking at these 3 characters on screen? Because D&D is so limiting in what you can do with your character. I should have no idea what any of these characters are. It should be just like, oh, that's some sort of warrior. That's it. I might be able to tell the difference between a warrior and a wizard. That would be the only thing. It's like, oh, that's some sort of crazy wizard. Oh, that's some sort of weird warrior. Anyway. Thanks for watching. Now, here are a couple guys with amazingly strong abs.